Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Jubilee Metals Group PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged. They can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab that's just situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Please just simply type in your questions and press send. Given the significant attendance on today's call, the company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company can review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so, and these will be available via your Investor Meet Company dashboard. Before we begin, I would like to submit the following poll, which will just appear on your screens now. And I would now like to hand you over to CEO Leon Coetzer. Good morning, sir.
Good morning and welcome, everybody. Good afternoon to the people dialing in from South Africa, and good morning to our UK attendees. Thank you again for taking the time to dial in and allowing us an opportunity to present to you first our corporate presentation, which has gone live onto our website, which is a prelude to our website itself being upgraded and updated to reflect Jubilee's strategy, what we are doing both in South Africa and Zambia and elsewhere. So without further ado, what I'll do is jump into the presentation. And as I go through the presentation, we've received quite a number of questions before going live. I'll attempt to use, where it's applicable, the particular slide and address some of the questions that have come through. The questions obviously has been dominated by copper and Zambia, which is totally understandable. And I'm hoping that following this presentation, the clarity that we are able to give on Zambia now going forward, the similarity between the manner in which we are deploying our copper strategy and that's been so successful in South Africa on our chrome and PGMs become clear to everybody, so that the path to achieving our copper expansion, our copper numbers, becomes more easily to follow. And as we provide updates on our achievements and what we are doing in Zambia, one can draw that similarity back to South Africa and also fill in the blank spaces on how we in fact are putting it together in Zambia. Just maybe as an initial introduction, especially for those people who aren't as familiar with Jubilee, if you look at to Jubilee, what you should see is a company that is striving to be a leading diversified metals production company or producing company. At our core, is driven by technical and operational excellence. We have a very large internal technical development center, which we are showcasing more and more to our clients, to our investors, and certainly will next year with the Indaba make use of that opportunity to even more showcase this very unique capability that Jubilee has, which is the driving engine behind the solutions we roll out into industry. What we've achieved, and if you look at our company, you'll see that we have specialized in targeting those reefs, those materials that have been discarded by industry or forgotten by industry because either it's too difficult, it didn't suit the operational production profile at the time, or simply was regarded as unrecoverable metal. This is the area that we've carved out a business, and as we called it back in 2015 and 16 when we set on this journey, that soon the industry will wake up to this as an industry in its own right. And today you've seen many companies talk of their focus or part of the strategic intent to look at these wastes or previously discarded materials. Jubilee believes we've taken a leading role in identifying and unpacking and realizing the value in these materials. If you look at our company, just a quick overview. Sadly, so on the one side, of course, we have our South African operations. It is a company that in South Africa over the past 5 years have grown from producing back in 2017. We produced just on 40,000 tons of chrome concentrate for that year or per annum. Today, we are processing north of 1.2 million tons a year and set our targets of breaching 1.5 million tons per annum of chrome concentrate, making us one of the largest in the industry. More significant is the fact that every ton of chrome we produce comes from materials the industry had regarded as either not economical or not recoverable. We have pioneered several industry-leading and groundbreaking technologies in delivering that business. On the back end of that chrome production profile is the PGM, or Platinum Group Metals business, where we recover the discard from our chrome operations to recover the remaining platinum, palladiums, rhodiums, and rutheniums out of that waste. We have a capacity at the moment, which we own, of about 44,000 ounces of PGMs per annum that we can produce from our chrome operations. Zambia is the new kid on the block, where we entered Zambia in 2019 and during November with a mission to recreate the success in South Africa, to develop technologies, to develop processes, to extract copper from materials people had regarded, or the industry had regarded, as either uneconomical, difficult to recover, or simply not recoverable. That's the mission we set out for Zambia. As part of that mission, we acquired a refining footprint as an anchor point, and from there have driven our strategy, which we'll go into quite a bit of detail today. Of course, this didn't happen overnight. In South Africa, over 5 years of development, we have today in a position where we've rolled out what we call our modular chrome processing units. 8 of these modules currently are rolled out into the industry. These 8 modules make up our capacity to produce our chrome concentrates, and it's the discard of these 8 modules that we further refine and recover through our Nyoni facility to make our 44,000 ounces per annum. A very similar approach you will note as we go through copper, where we look to diversify our operating processing modules across the industry, as these modules produce copper concentrate that is then further refined at a central location. The modular approach has numerous advantages. The fact that it is compact, it is therefore light on power and water. It means you have a diversified footprint. Your processing modules are closer to source and less reliant on large available infrastructure, which is a challenge in the jurisdictions we operate in, most notably both in South Africa with its well-publicized power outages, as well as the limitations of rail and logistics. Zambia had suffered an equal limitation on power and logistical challenges in Zambia. So being power light to enable the capacity and the expansion of your operations is a vital component to success. And some of these lessons Jubilee had to learn from the mistakes we had made, because we are pioneering in this field. As we discussed, our processing modules are at the center of our success in South Africa. Being able to have 8 modules that combined makes up our capacity ensures that at no given time that all of your operational capacity is exposed to power outages or infrastructure challenges. We've also been able to roll out backup power systems to our modules because they power light, to ensure that we are able to run off the national grid when needed, so that the only impact of power going on or off in South Africa operations is simply the cost of the power being fed to our operations. It is this breakthrough development that we had finally resolved in our development center in Zambia. And it's this development that has finally opened up our ability to now expand into Zambia. Yes, and we've made mistakes when we entered into Zambia. We entered in with the approach to put or establish centralized processing facilities, which we could bring in our materials, concentrate up our copper, and bring it and have it refined at our refinery. This approach was severely challenged by the lack of reliable infrastructure, the lack of reliable power to feed this central our processing footprint. And in the background, our development center had concluded the development of these packaged modular approach, which enables us to take our copper processing modules exactly as in South Africa with chrome, to source across various modules, which are able to do the hard work of upgrading our copper into a high-grade copper concentrate, which can then be transported to our central refining footprint. It is unshackled our ability to expand our copper operations, being limited by infrastructure and infrastructure availability. The manner in which these modular systems are designed makes it also very suitable to be reliant on backup power, if necessary, to have it commissioned. And it's this approach that we are now rolling into Zambia, and no doubt the copper industry will take note of our capability of taking low-grade copper resources into high-grade concentrates at source, and then having it refined at a central location. Groundbreaking stuff done by our Technical Development Center. In Zambia, if we step into Zambia specifically and taking the time to unpack what we are doing and how we are doing Zambia, for people to understand how we are chasing down that target we've set of 25,000 tons of copper per annum, which is just an initial target. We certainly have aspirations far greater than that. At the moment in Zambia, we have two operational footprints. We have the Kabwe, which is on the left there on the slide, which is in the central area of Zambia. And then we have a Rowan concentrator, which is closer to that northwestern corner where most of copper production happens in Zambia. These two operational footprints, the philosophy is that the Sable refinery, with its refining capacity of 14,000 tons of copper cathode per annum, that capacity is defined by the grade of the concentrate arriving at Sable. That concentrate material, Rowan plays a vital part of producing that concentrate, which is then refined at Sable. Rowan is only one of the footprints that we will expand to feed our Sable refinery. We look to have 3 to 4 processing modules, which upgrades our material, makes these concentrates, which is then transported in to our Sable refinery. The first of these modules are currently targeted for our Rowan concentrator, where that module has the capability of taking a particular waste material, upgrade that waste material, and have it transported into Sable for refining. This slide might look busy, but I'm going to stand slightly back from the slide and just take a step back to make sure the clarity of how we're executing and what we're executing in Zambia. We often, as a company, loosely speak about waste, tailings, or discarded materials. If you look at copper and copper waste, it is grouped into 2 key categories for Jubilee. There is the waste that is created from mining and rejected onto what is called waste rock stockpiles, which is material that has never been processed. It's been rejected either for the type of reef or type of copper mineralogy, often because of the grade of copper. It's therefore unprocessed virgin rock. Often, like in South Africa with chrome as well, mining companies have left this material in their open pit, abandoned and regarded as too complex to process. That's the one category of waste in Zambia. It's an extremely large category of waste with many, many hundreds of millions, more than 1 billion tons of rock sitting on surface that's been discarded, mostly because of its oxidized nature of the copper. The second category of waste or tailings that we look at is what we call processed tailings. This is material that's been mined, been processed through the metallurgical processes, and then a tailings is rejected onto a tailings dam. It's therefore not virgin rock, but in fact fine mud containing that copper that was not recoverable by the process that was deployed. It therefore is naturally much lower grade than the waste rock. It also is technically more complex because it means that the current metallurgical process has already processed that material. And it's only that copper that was not recoverable that's rejected into that tailings. These two components of waste is fundamentally different, fundamentally approached by segregated technical teams within Jubilee. It's also independent of one another being pursued. And therefore, the timelines to complete the development and process solution for each of these components are driven by the technical development success. It is coincidental that the process development of the waste rock through its modular processing systems that have been concluded has been fully completed ahead of the tailings. It's also very opportune that that has happened because of the value of the copper contained within this waste rock, which now Jubilee is able to pursue so aggressively through its processing modules. It is why we speak of the deployment of our processing modules at source at these waste rock materials. Our Project M, we announced a couple of weeks back with the release of our quarterly results, is extremely fundamental in the rollout of these processing module strategies. Project M, which is a classic example in Zambia, is an abandoned open pit operation where the reef, weathered and oxidized reef, have been abandoned because of its complexity. Jubilee is able and already have recommissioned the operations at that particular project. We are able to extract that reef both at surface and what's left in situ in the operations. We already are bringing that material to Sable, processing it very successfully, and refining it to copper cathode. It's an example of the hundreds of such mines existing in Zambia, fully abandoned because of that type of reef. It is where a process module is being developed and constructed to be deployed at Project M, where that process module will now, at source, further upgrade that copper to a copper concentrate of high value, which is then refined at Sable. While that module is being constructed, we are directly taking that reef profitably to Sable and refining it to cathode. So you can see the impact that this process modules will have, where not only are we transporting high-grade concentrate, but we'll also be feeding high-grade concentrate into our refinery, which naturally expands the refinery's capacity to make more copper cathode. It's a fundamental development. It's a fundamental project we're doing as a demonstration to the copper industry and to the Zambian government to show how these junior mining sector, which is a thriving sector in Zambia, can be supported by technology, formal process development, and a company like Jubilee with our ability to extract and process that copper. So you as shareholders and investors can expect more of these style of projects coming on stream within Zambia as we roll out the modules targeting the abandoned small mining operations and medium mining operations where that rock has been left. It's an exact replica of the process and the success in South Africa, where our Tutsi Chrome project is that example of an abandoned chrome operation that today has a thriving chrome production facility making chrome concentrate by Jubilee and the discard of that being refined to PGMs. A similar strategy being rolled out. The second step up component to what is happening in Zambia is through Rowan, where Rowan targets that overburdened rock. It's now been mined, dumped onto overburdened rocks and walked away from because of its complexities. That's where the process module is currently being deployed to upgrade that waste rock to high-grade concentrate for refining at Sable. Just Rowan, together with the already identified 3 targets surrounding Sable, which are similar to our Project M, will fill Sable. But that's not where it ends for us at Jubilee. We are in advanced discussions to secure more and more of these overburdened waste rock dumps. To put in perspective, there are overburdened waste rock dumps in Zambia where one such waste rock dump contains more than 3 million tons of copper. That's the order of magnitude we are pursuing. We are able to deploy 4 or 5 modules on one waste rock dump to expand, because it's simply a replication of our footprint we're rolling out. That's how clear the expansion strategy for just that component of waste, which is the waste rock surface and abandoned waste rock in situ, is for our expansion drive. It is therefore in our sights to achieve our 25,000 tons of copper per annum from our waste rock alone. It would take roughly 4 to 5 modules to achieve that kind of output by simply a replication of what we've got, where we have 8 modules already in South Africa on chrome. That's the breakthrough our development center has achieved, and that's the breakthrough we're bringing to the copper industry on that materials. It's therefore critically important for Jubilee to secure as many of these opportunities as possible, because it's only time for the industry to be educated on our capability of extracting yet another valuable metal out of yet another resource that was discarded by industry and forgotten by industry. You take South Africa. We were the first to produce commercially at scale fine chrome and make fine chrome valuable in South Africa. 5 years later, we have other companies now claiming to have the same. But in the interim, we've secured the lion's share of the opportunity in any event. That's the same target for the waste rock in Zambia and in copper. The second component of that waste opportunity, which is of course the tailings, which are processed material, mined and processed and discarded. That development is progressing at pace. The key challenge that we face on that development is our commitment to use a solution that shrinks or addresses the environmental liabilities caused from the historical processing of that material and those tailings. We are therefore committed to find a solution that not only is viable economically, but also actively reduces the environmental impact from the historical depositioning of these tailings. That's the development happening. That's what we spoke of our relationship with a company called Draslovka, where we've signed an exclusive agreement that Jubilee has the exclusive right to that solution across Zambia and the DRC as we develop that technique specifically to tails, because the chemicals we are jointly evaluating is chemicals which offer zero harm to the environment. That's the second component of the waste, which we seek to unlock and bring yet another solution of extracting metal out of what people thought was valueless. This slide therefore tries and demonstrates in the orange in the green is the replication of these process modules. As we roll out these process modules, fully tested, fully tried through our development center, where we are able to run at pilot scale, large pilot scale, our systems. Our technical team is traveling across Zambia, profiling each opportunity to ensure the sizing of our module, not the technology we use, is accurate for that solution. That's the pace at which we seek to roll out the solution in copper. I've never been more clear in seeing the future in copper and in Zambia as where we are today, with a solution at hand which is not reliant on infrastructure in Zambia, a solution at hand that is able to very economically take a low-grade rock people thought had no value to a high-grade concentrate through an existing refining process. This is groundbreaking stuff Jubilee is bringing to the copper industry. And as shareholders and as investors, through all the challenges we've faced in Zambia, you could measure us at the pace at which we now roll this out into the industry. And of course, we've made mistakes. We've discussed our initial entry into Zambia, deploying a large road operational footprint, only to be faced by infrastructure limitations, even though contractually it's supposed to be delivered with power and water. at every corner, such a large footprint becomes reliant on the infrastructure to exist. Our modular plants are free of that because of its ability to have its supplemental power being supplied to it. It's modular approach to shift it to source rather than having a centralized footprint. That's the fundamental shift that's come through in Zambia. I hope that's more clear for our people and for our investors. As we said, we had our Rowan, which is the photo on the left. That currently is being added with its front end. This modular comes in, so it allows Rowan to strip out a copper concentrate early in the process, long before it has to be chemically extracted. Timelines on the Rowan implementation, as we said, we're pushing hard to have that system in place. It's been fully constructed and tested. It now gets deconstructed into its containers and shipped to Zambia. We have one or two components that is stuck within our logistical system in South Africa. It's probably you've seen the news of the chaotic state at some of our harbors where ships are docked for weeks trying to offload at the moment. And there's a couple of equipment that we have to just confirm that in fact they are ready and able to be offloaded. But we'll keep you posted on that development. In South Africa, just to clarify, especially for those shareholders who aren't as informed about Jubilee, in South Africa, we've said it's a different company than Zambia. It's far more evolved. It's a company that over the last 5 years have developed dramatically, seen enormous growth as the technologies and process techniques we've developed expanded into the industry, as we captured that opportunity that was overlooked by the industry. So that today we have our 8 operating modules, and we've told our shareholders we look to have 10 operating modules going forward. At 10 operating modules, we'll be the world's largest producer of chrome. Yet we're doing it of material people had thought had no value. Our project Tutsi, which on the far left there, is the newest addition to our portfolio. That project Tutsi is set for its upgrade, where we are deploying our 9th operating module to take its capacity from 35 to 65 and then to 100,000 tons per month capacity to breach that 1.75 million tons of chrome concentrate we set for ourselves as a medium-term target, and chasing down that 2 million tons aspirational target. On the far left, the far right, we have that yellow eastern limb side. We have rights to significant material in the eastern limb. We have placed for now the construction of the new platinum group metals processing plant on hold. Platinum materials and the platinum market has gone through a torrid time where the value of what we sell has halved by the industry, in the industry at the moment. We are fortunate as a company because of how we operate, our efficiencies, that our PGM operations remain profitable, even at these very depressed prices. So we're ready to pounce to reignite the construction of that PGM plant as soon as the recovery of the PGM market comes through, which is expected to reflect its fundamentals more strongly over the coming 18 months as the true supply and demand of PGMs start being reflected, rather than in the current period where there's a lot of PGM capacity that was off for refurbishment from the very large producers that have come back on stream and therefore had a short-term effect on the PGM pricing. Again, as we said, in South Africa, it is the prelude to what we're doing in Zambia. It is a diverse 8 processing modules placed at source, upgrading chrome materials overlooked by the industry into a high-grade chrome concentrate, and refining PGMs at a central operating processing location. We have set that aspirational target to hit 2 million tons. It's in our sights. We know how to get there. We need 2 more operating modules from our 8 to 10, and we've reached that level. It is important that we capture this opportunity for us and Jubilee and its shareholders and investors on the extremely hard work that's gone in to not only establish the technology, the processing modules, the PGM side to benefit from that integrated process, but also the operational excellence that runs throughout Jubilee South Africa. Jubilee, under our executive head, Bertus van der Merwe, is a beacon of reference for the industry on efficiencies we achieve, on our costs measures we achieve, and the transparency in which we work with our clients in South Africa. It's why the company has gone from strength to strength, able to fund its own growth off its own cash flows and revenues as it expands its operational footprint in South Africa. It is a huge foundation to Jubilee's success and the sheer size of what happens in South Africa. Maybe just a throwback. This should be news to not very many people. This is just the summary of our results over the past year, and just again highlighting key aspects of the health of the company, the strength of our balance sheet. Even though we've capitalized our operations, we've invested heavily into our growth in South Africa, both in the PGM side to take up that extra discard from our chrome operations, as well as expanding our chrome operations, while developing, deploying, and now ready to expand our copper industry in Zambia. That's a company renowned for our investment into our growth into our two operations, both in South Africa and in Zambia. Of course, as part of this, our company's governance structures, board compositions, committee compositions have all matured from the entrepreneurial ideas we had back in 2010 to 2014, where we convinced our investors to back us in creating this unique little carved out space to show the industry you can build a real company with longevity, focusing on what people had overlooked in value. It's evolved today to a company run with strict governance, strict environmental sustainability guidelines, run by a world-leading non-executive in Tracy Kerr at the board, overseeing that drive of our company. We are, from when people come into our company, they join our company, they're often surprised by the level of investment we put back into our people. It's a core component of our success. Our teams are regarded so highly by industry that our biggest loss of employees are very large companies trying to entice our people to join them. Our company is structured in a board followed by what we call our strategic committee, or Stratco. Our Stratco has names highly recognizable in the industry. On the one side, we have Bertus van der Merwe leading our drive in South Africa, leading that operational excellence, backed by a technical team to deliver what is in South Africa. We have Rikus Grimbeek, who has joined us, who has taken on board and owns our Zambia rollout. His sole purpose is to roll out the Zambia modular system into Zambia to show how energy metal focus can not only equal our South African operations, but in the very near term, far exceed it in its contribution to earnings and revenue. We are supported by Neil as our Chief Financial Officer, joined us roughly 2 months ago, well known in the South African industry, well exposed to Africa and operations in Africa. And then we have Pecha on our strategic side, looking at our strategic investment portfolio, supporting us as Stratco. As I said, at our board level, we have a board of 6 members. Ollie, as our chairman, has wide breadth of experience serving on boards of very large companies and supporting me and the board in the evolution of this group. Each of our board members, unique in their own right, skill set that is enviable to many, many, many companies. At the moment, I suppose the biggest frustration of our group is where our share price is hovering, our share price waiting to be reflective of what it is we actually achieving in the background. to reflect the success in South Africa, and to reflect, finally, the solution and the clarity we've secured in Zambia as we now roll out that solution on the back of the lessons learned, which are so valuable to have learned, as well as the proven track record in South Africa of the success you can achieve by rolling out your modular units once they've been completely developed, which is the position where we are. So I look forward to the next period as people start seeing the next modular component being contracted to be employed and installed in Zambia. The next Project M to come on stream as yet another mining company either partners or we directly secure that reef on the back of our modular success. Yet another waste rock resource being secured where we can deploy 4, 5, 6 modules onto a singular waste rock resource. And of course, the updates through our development of that second category, which is the process tailings. That's where we are as a group. I hope that's far more clear to our investors, to the interested people looking at what we do and how we achieve that. And that concludes my formal presentation. Thank you for those listening in. We'll now take some time to just go through key questions. I'm hoping that some of them have been answered through the presentation, but I'll quickly go through what we've got at the moment and the questions we have, just to answer them, some of them more directly, in case there's still some confusion. And as we said earlier, we'll certainly post out more formal formal answers to those questions where we might have missed them during this live session. Just to look at the grouping of questions, if that is okay. Looking at the grouping of questions, the first grouping of questions really is around clarity of the process flow, clarity to understand how we treat third-party ore, third-party waste, etc. And maybe I'll answer them as a group because there's roughly about 10, 15 questions, all with a similar theme, just to again ensure that clarity is there. At the current central refining footprint, we have Sable Refinery, an exceptional refinery with a replacement value of multiple $100 million. That Sable Refinery's key feed target is in 3 categories. The first is Project M's, and there'll be many more Project M's. These are these open cast mines where the reef has been left or discarded into waste rock because of its nature. These projects will be secured, process modules will be deployed, and that concentrate will come into Sable. 3 such Project M's will already fill Sable. Currently, we have Project M fully secured. The second category is your more distant modules like Rowan, where Rowan upgrades produces a high-grade concentrate for the feed into Sable. The third category, by far the lowest category, is third-party ores. Third-party ores is opportunistic to fill or utilize capacity while these other capacities, which is more directly owned by Jubilee, we control the quality and the quantity and the operational excellence of those operations. That combined forms Sable. It is highly unlikely that Sable will continue to have any capacity for third-party material outside of our strategic rollout of our modulars in the foreseeable future. The other group on this particular topic is, of course, Rowan. Rowan has not delivered the throughputs we had hoped, dogged by infrastructure challenges, challenged by the fact that it's a large singular process footprint, dogged by the fact that it is able to process a limited category of material. The process module being added to Rowan opens up that capacity completely. It means the process module going into Rowan is able to produce early concentrate, immediately refinable at Sable, and only the discard of that module will be treated through the Rowan concentrator to make a second high-grade concentrate going forward. The next group of questions is around the Northern Project. It speaks to a very good question around Mopani. We had announced a while back that we had signed a memorandum of understanding, a binding memorandum with Mopani to utilize some of their defunct, decommissioned operating footprint to establish another refining footprint in that northwestern region, in the heart of the copper manufacturing or copper production area of Zambia. That is still very live, very active, and it ties into a significant announcement we made and just touched on it at the time, which is the Mufulira Slag Project. The Mufulira Slag Project is, if you look at that component of waste, which we discussed, mined material that's been processed and then discarded, the premier quality or premier value of that portfolio at the very pinnacle sits Mufulira Slag. It therefore, if one could pick your assets within that category, you would pick the Mufulira Slag because of its contained value that it holds within that slag. Mufulira Slag, or Mufulira as such, is owned by Mopani. It therefore would be a perfect example of how do you establish a processing solution for the Mufulira Slag project by integrating it into decommissioned current infrastructure at Mopani that can be repurposed. The next phase of that project has two components to it. The first component is the current well-publicized sale of the Mopani company. That company, which is run through a formal tender process through the Zambian government, as well as the current shareholders of Mopani, is coming to a conclusion. I can only speak to deadlines given by government, which is at that process they seek to have completed before the end of this calendar year. It's a vital step because it means we finally get to meet who is the true new owner of Mopani. The second component to that process is our technical dedicated team on that project, completing the technical evaluation of that project. And as part of that, we are concluding the final commercial terms of the Mufulira Slag project, because we have to conclude under what commercial terms do we access that property infrastructure that we seek to repurpose, recapitalize for the use of the Mufulira Slag project. To put in perspective, the Mufulira Slag project is able in its own right to make more than 25,000 tons of copper. That's the significance of the Mufulira Slag project. We had to, as part of that formal tender process, there were companies far larger than us tendering to that project, but we were selected because of our ability to technically unpack and provide a solution for the treatment of that material, as we've shown in South Africa and in our development center. That's where the Mopani JV or joint venture agreement sits at the moment. There's a question which I just want to clarify. Of course, during our processing of copper, we make two types of concentrates beyond just high grade and low grade. There is an oxide dominant copper, or quite often referred to as acid soluble copper. That is the copper that we refine straight into cathode. Then there's the sulfide copper, or often referred to as the insoluble copper. There we sell the high grade copper concentrate into the market. It's why our copper production capacity is bigger than what Sable is. Sable only speaks to the cathode production capacity. There's a couple of questions on the Northern Development side, on Draslovka, which is the company who we partnered with for the development of the chemicals required for the extraction of copper out of processed tailings. We specifically partnered with Draslovka because of their development of chemicals which are inert to nature and offer no harm to nature. It's that component that we have executed an agreement with Draslovka that for the process of tailings, we have an exclusive agreement for the regions of Zambia and the DRC. That's the relationship between us. That test work is ongoing. We have upscaled that test work. We've gone from small scale, lab scale, batch scale, which means you do a once-off test. It's now running continuously in a lot upscaled process, with all of that process coming to a completion during the first couple of weeks of December, where we then have the outcome of a continuously run process over the past 90 to 120 days of that system. Last question that I've got in the grouping is on South Africa. I'm glad South Africa is featuring because of its significance to our group. Is when do we start with Tutsi's ninth module? We're currently, Tutsi sits with a 35,000 ton capacity, and we're taking that up with an addition of a 50,000 ton module at Tutsi. The construction has started at the manufacturing site. The Tutsi implementation will be updated to market as soon as we have better sight of that construction timeline. We are in a period where logistics and delivery of equipment is particularly challenged through the infrastructure breakdown at some of the South African harbours, which of course is a critical component of the logistics, as most of these parts are imported into South Africa. And as soon as we have better clarity, we will certainly bring that to market. That concludes the grouping of questions that we had received. I truly hope that through today's presentation, people are more clear on what we are pursuing, how we seek to implement our strategy in Zambia, how South Africa is rolling on its own cash flow, its expansion, and I hope that there is a similar level of excitement and expectation, certainly what I hold, for what we seek to implement in Zambia, and the clarity with which we now can see how to roll that out into Zambia. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you again for taking the time. We certainly appreciate the sheer numbers of people that have logged on and listened to our story. And thank you for your support to date.
Leon, that's great. And thank you very much indeed for being so generous with your time then, addressing all of those questions that came in from investors. And of course, we'll be able to give you back all of the questions just for you to review, to then add any additional responses where appropriate to do so. And we'll publish all those responses out on the platform. But Leon, if I may just thank you one more time just for updating investors this morning. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you'll now be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team can really better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of Jubilee Metals Group PLC, we would like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That now concludes today's session, so good afternoon to you all.